And the day you take the state test, you should at least once, just once, you don't need to copy it, you don't need to print it, you should at least look under Florida statutes and take a look at these chapters. You got chapter 20, which is the organization of the state of Florida. You got chapter 475, which is the real estate law or professional practice. You got chapter 455, which is the regulation of professions. You got chapter 120, which is the Administrative Procedures Act and the rules of the Florida Real Estate Commission, which is chapter 61J2 of the Florida Administrative Code. Now, here's what's important in all of this. First of all, if you looked at your book at all, and you might have already looked at it, go to page 17 at the bottom, the first page on the chapter 2, and look at the bottom, a little gray area to the left, and it says 475.001 FS, Florida statutes, and chapter 20, 20.03 FS, which is Florida statutes. So there's that definition of caveat emptor enters into two different laws or two different chapters of the Florida statutes, chapter 475 and chapter 20. So sometime again, between now and the day you're going to take your state test, you should at least, and they're available online, okay, you don't print it because you're going to spend a ream of paper, and you don't need it because the laws change every other day, or at least every time the legislature meets. So you don't need to copy it, you don't need to print it, but you should at least read it. Because everything that's in this book has been deciphered out of that. Okay? So you should at least see the way the legal language reads.
Can you get this one on website, you said then?
Yeah. Online Sunshine.
Online?
Online Sunshine. That's the website. Online Sunshine. Go to Google or anywhere else, either put Florida statutes or put Online Sunshine. You'll go right to the Florida statutes. Then you can pick your chapter and just read through it once. You have to be awake because it's legal language. You might have to read it slow. Do I have any attorneys here? I forgot to ask that. Do we have any attorneys here? No. Then you're not used to reading legal language. So read it slow, but read it at least once. Okay? On page 18, you'll see another reference on 455. On line number 8, it says 455.201. By the way, just to rest your mind, now you're very concerned about, oh my God, they're going to ask, what does 475.01 say? They are not going to ask you that, okay? They might say, in accordance with chapter 475, this is true. You don't need to know the paragraph number, but you're going to have to know if that's true. So read it once, okay, for your reference. So you don't have to worry about chapter and verse. They're never going to ask you that. At least they haven't started to anyway. But be very careful with those. Okay. Just to give you what they are. Chapter 20 talks about the organization structure of the state of Florida. And remember that everything that you're reading is referencing the state of Florida. You're not getting a real estate license for California or New York or Texas, or you're getting a real estate license to practice in the state of Florida. So everything that we're talking about, and if you came from another state and you know about the other state, forget it. I know that's easier said than done. But yes, sir.
What will happen if I move to
Another state?
Depends on what state you move to. You'll read later on in this chapter and in other chapters that the state of Florida has already 13 states, and only 13 states, that they have agreed that they will take Florida licensees and Florida will accept their licensees but they only have it with 13 states. So if it's not one of those states, you may have to do this all over again. So your idea is, don't move from the state of Florida. We like you here. Okay?
It's nice and cold.
States that don't negotiate with anybody, and Florida really doesn't. Okay? I'm surprised that Florida even has 13. New York, California, you know, they don't like to negotiate with anybody, and Florida doesn't like to negotiate with them either. So that's not some of the states that they have. And you'll see later in what states they have. The real estate professional practice, the two most important chapters that you can read, if you don't have time to read all of them, by first priority, chapter 475. Okay? That's your first priority. Second priority is 455. After that, you can take whatever priority you want. The last, no, I shouldn't say that. Number 3 in priority should be 61J2. After those 3 priorities, you can take any other chapter you want and take it.
Chapter 475?
475, 455, and 61J2.
Which one?
61J2, the last one.
Oh, yeah.
Because 61J2 is the rules of the Florida Real Estate Commission. By the way, on the bottom of page 19, you'll see what it says, web link. And here it gives you some of the websites for the Florida statutes. You can look at it at My Florida License and then go all the way to statutes. Or you can just make it real easy and say legislature or state in Florida US statutes. Or really just do under Google or Yahoo or wherever search engine you use and just put Florida statutes. They'll get you to it. But you can use these. The book is full of these, by the way. They give you hints as to where to find the information. License provision. Usually begin a career as a sales associate. Obviously, you're required a pre-license education course, which is this, also called FREC 1, also called the Sales Associate course. After you pass this course, and this may be a little repetition, but don't feel bad. We want to make sure that you remember. You got to pass the state license, and you're initially licensed as inactive until an employer is found. This is what this means. Let's just say that you passed your course, and you decided you're going to be so sure that you're going to pass your course that you're going to file your application sometime between March 31st, which I think you should do because it takes them 4 to 6 weeks to go through the process of the license application or the application process. You make your appointment with the test givers, and they'll take your electronic fingerprints. They don't use ink anymore on your fingers. You just put your finger on a flat screen, maybe a copier. It looks like a copier. You just put your hand in there and they get your fingers. And they send it directly to the FBI and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, also known as FDLE, which you know all about. They process your application and you're ready to go, and you take your test, and before you walk out of there, they tell you, congratulations, you passed. That piece of paper that they gave you is an inactive license. Believe it or not, that is an inactive license. Now, how do you activate it? Well, you can wait till you come over here and talk to Wilma about letting you work for her, or you can go across the street. There's probably a broker within a block of where it is, and you can walk in there and says, I want to be active. And they're going to make a deal with you. You're going to work with them as far as, or you're going to negotiate with them a commission agreement. You're going to sign a one piece of paper saying, you know, you agree, and they're going to fax something to the state, to the DRE, the Division of Real Estate. That fax, you just became active. Isn't that difficult? You're going to pass your exam. your broker, the broker of your selection, is going to fax something to the state, and now you're active. But until you do that, the state is not going to send you an actual license little card. So you need to do that. Now, you don't need to do that ever. You can stay like that inactive for the rest of your life, as long as you take continuing education every 2 years, your post-licensing education, so you don't ever have to be active. Okay? You can maintain your license inactive forever, as long as two things. You take your post-licensing and continuing ed, whatever is required, and you renew. You pay the fee. Okay? You don't ever have to be active. If you want to be a broker, however, you're going to have to work or be active a couple of years before you can qualify to take the broker course. Everybody clear on that? Is it difficult to become active? I don't know. It depends on woman. How difficult she's going to be to...
What if she says no?
What do you mean she says no? She doesn't like you? Oh my God. Now you got a problem. Okay. Sales associate and broker associates. Now, I'm going to give you, before we go to sales associate, I'm going to give you the definition because there's always a misunderstanding about broker associates. What is a broker associate? I did talk about it a little bit earlier, even though we weren't in the license, about the two licenses. Sales associate, work a couple of years, you can take your second FREC 2 and pass that and take your another state exam and you can become a broker. Okay, by definition, a broker is one that has an office. But you don't have to have an office, okay? If you're qualified because you waited 2 years, because you took FREC 2, because you passed that course, because you passed your state exam, you're qualified to be a broker, but remember, by definition, broker alone, the word broker by itself, means you have an office. If you wish not to, and this is your wish, it's not a requirement, if you wish not to open an office for yourself, you can still work for a broker. You'll be treated as a sales associate, and you can stay like that forever and never open your office. Just because you're broker qualified, and I like to call it, rather than broker associate, I like to call it broker qualified. Okay? You can open your office tomorrow if you wish, because you've already met all the requirements. All you have to do is open your office and let FREC know. FREC is, by the way, the Florida Real Estate Commission. We use FREC or FRED all the time. FREC. You let FREC know that you changed your mind, you don't want to work for a broker anymore. You send them a fax. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but let's just leave it at that for now. You are now a broker because you have your own office. Okay? But you can be a broker associate forever. Okay? Things change. You know, you got all of a sudden, one of your clients wants to go into business with you and they want to finance your deal, and you know, they're going to make you a deal you can't refuse, and you want to open your office tomorrow, you can do that because you're broker qualified. Now, if one of your customers does that and you still only have your sales associate, you're going to have to say, wait a second, I still have to take FREC 2 and I still have to pass a state license before I can open my own office. So, but it is entirely up to you. It is not a requirement. Okay? Broker licenses are not a requirement. Okay, so as a sales associate, you're always going to be employed by and work under the direction of and the control of a broker. Okay? You're going to be employed by and under the control and direction of a broker. That basically means you don't do anything without discussing it with a broker. I look at it a little different. The way brokers look at it is, when you walk out of my office, and you work for me of course, you have my license in your pocket. If you do something wrong, I've done something wrong. That's why it says you're employed by and work under the direction and control of a broker. You can also work for an owner developer. Let's just say you want to work for, what's a big developer, Lennar. You want to sell for Lennar. Well, you can go work for Lennar with a real estate license. Okay, and get a commission. Now, you can work for Lennar as a salary, and you're not required to have a license, and you can do anything for Lennar. However, if you're going to be paid a commission, the money is based on production and sales, you are required to have a license. So you can either work for a broker or work for